You're in. We should be live. Yippee. We are going to talk about fighters today. We have 4 custom level 10 Pathfinder 2nd Edition fighters. You guys let me know once you see the stream. It'll just basically be our backdrop screen with Valaris and some of the old characters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
All
I've got
right.
it on my.
All right. So these are our honorable guests we've had here last week we played. We have Narda, Steel Blue, Sarak, and Vault Viking from the United Kingdom. Who wants to go first and tell us about your awesome level 10 fighter? Or I'm gonna roll I'm gonna roll a 10 sided die and divide by 2.
Oh,
That means one person will actually die. How about I pick Onslow Trask? Does that sound good?
yeah,
All
I can
right.
go
Let's see
first.
if I can find your picture, and I'll bring him up too. This is this unruly, unpainted, mean, grumpy NPC slash milk bottle collector with an executioner's axe and World of Warcraft leather armor on, but he looks like he could whoop some butt, and he's level 10. So you got to tell us about this guy. What is up with this dude? Um,
Um, well, on Onslow Trask is actually a dude, an NPC from one of my ongoing campaigns that I decided to use him as a basis for making my build.
mm-hmm.
In my campaign, he doesn't have any class levels currently, but I mean, I've done this now, so maybe he will.
Cool. I'm peeking
Um,
ahead. He has lore and alcohol, but he's
Yeah,
only.
yeah,
There
he
must
is
be
a
something.
barman, and still an active barman, even though he's a 10th level fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he still pours drinks for people on the day to day, but having to deal with certain ruffians in his hometown, and later in life the new town he's now living in. He had to pick up a thing or two in how to deal with them. Um,
Now,
and and
Was he a level 10 NPC in your world campaign, your own custom campaign you've been running your friends through, or is it
Well,
just the idea?
he was just a barman.
Okay,
So I hadn't intended for him to have any levels in
gotcha.
fight.
So he's just an NPC.
Um, but I liked the idea of what his life would be. For example, if the NPCs hadn't have been there and he had to step up to the plate. So
Mm-hmm.
that was sort of my concept. Um, and so he's a fighter because he's had to deal with some stuff, and then he's got dedication into rogue because of the seedier element that he's come into contact with being a barman.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, and so he's picked up a thing or two while he's also been dealing with the criminal element that
You
he's had to get involved with.
so if somebody's watching this, they're like, level 10 fighter. Think about if they're looking at this character sheet. We got 4-page typical Pathfinder character sheet for 2nd edition. We see high acrobatics, high intimidation, performance, high stealth. So that's coming from this dedication, which essentially is archetype multiclassing. Isn't that correct?
Yeah. Um, but even so, most of the sort of like stuff to put that up didn't necessarily come from
Mm-hmm.
the dedications.
Oh,
Quite a
okay.
lot quite a lot of the flavor of him being involved in that seedy environment came from the dedication and the feats thereafter from that particular from the rogue archetype multiclass.
So when you were
Um,
creating him, when did you decide to pick up this rogue dedication, which is an archetype, correct?
yeah, so that was straight up second level.
Okay.
Um,
So rogue dedication, as you see here in the character sheet, I'll try to highlight it for people who don't understand that. It's not like picking another class in AD&D where you're a fighter and then you just decide suddenly to be an illusionist in 2nd edition. You actually pick this kind of archetype that starts giving you access to feats and special abilities chosen by the design team to function. You don't change your class completely and now suddenly become a rogue. Isn't that correct, fellas?
yeah,
That's
so basically you instead of getting one of your class feats in the particular class that you're currently in, you swap that out for the dedication or the archetype feat if you're already in the dedication. Um,
think
And
Fighter specifically allows for a lot of multi-classing feats because a lot of the feats in Fighter have to do with abilities that you gain access to, and so taking another feat in Fighter doesn't exactly mean you have better action economy.
Ah, good point.
yeah.
Okay.
So I sort of focused on him sort of striking from the shadows, but not. I didn't like add the benefit of like the sneak attack because I knew from the get go he wasn't going to be using like an agile or a finesse weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So I went purely on the hit first, hit hard sort of like for his sort of like combat style and the hit from the shadows. So
Sure.
he had like from his dedication, he got an extra skill training. He got a skill feat, and he also gained access to the rogue's surprise attack feature, which means that if he is in like if he's rolling stealth for initiative and he goes before his opponent, his opponent is flat-footed to him,
Mm-hmm.
which lowers the enemy's AC by 2, which is effectively giving him an extra +2 to that +20 he has to his die anyway on his great axe. And then I took a fighter feat where if he misses an attack, his subsequent attack isn't as he doesn't have as much of a penalty to his second attack if he missed the previous one.
So that's a, if I remember correctly, that's a multiple attack penalty type thing. You have to stay up front and use an action point to do it before you swing, and then your second swing no longer has. What's the name of that one? I forgot the name of it. Which one is it? I remember when I was building a fighter, I'm like, I really should take that. That way I can just make my first attack use this. It's not sudden charge, not attack opportunity. I don't see it on here. Does anyone else recognize it?
I think you might be talking about a different one.
I must be talking about another one then. Okay, all right, I'm wrong.
Exacting strike makes it so that
that's what
if
it
you
is.
miss with the first attack, the second one doesn't even incur the penalty.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of exacting strike. Sorry about that.
Anybody take a feat with a press trait? I know it has that one, and it's like, well, you can only use this if you have a multiple attack penalty. Did anybody take one with that trait? I kind of shied away from it personally.
No.
I don't remember that I did.
Yeah, exacting strike. Is that not there?
So hard hitting from the shadows, two-handed weapon, drinker.
Yeah, and the idea is just to take them out at once, and not have to deal with them afterwards. Really. Obviously, that doesn't always go to plan, which is why he has quick reversal because he's been used to doing that, revealing himself, and then having another 2 guys jump him because there's been people potentially that he hasn't spotted. So he's taken out his particular target, and then his friends have shown up and flanked him. And what quick reversal does is allow him to attack both of his assailants. So you turn your foes flanking against them with a quick reverse. So
Gotcha.
He makes a melee strike against one of the flanking enemies, and you make another strike with the same weapon
against
a different
146.
enemy.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. And the second strike has the multiple attack penalty of the initial attack and doesn't count towards your multiple attack penalty. So you're basically, as long as that quick reversal is your first attack, both attacks are at your full bonus.
That's
But
creative.
if it was a second attack, so in this scenario, obviously he's gone and attacked a guy. It's probably not until the next round until the other guys have jumped in. So it probably would be his first attack to use quick reversal. So on his sheet he's +20 to hit. So he'd be rolling at full attack bonus to hit both of them. and with a great axe. That's not a nice situation to be in for those guys.
Yeah, you don't want to be flanked like that in the game, but if you wanted to disrupt a group that and you can take the hits, like if there are a couple of casters or something like that, or something that you
Yeah.
know is lower level and you wanted to take out a group quickly and you could get in that position. You can even just run up there without being hidden and position yourself intentionally to be flanked so you can nail two targets in one action. Well, it's actually the second strike is a second action, isn't it? You have to say first up front, I'm going to do a quick reversal. That means you make the melee strike against a flanking enemy. But do you also, for the same action, get the second strike? Are you getting 2-for-1 bargain?
Let's read this. You
That's
turn
how
your
it reads.
foes against them.
It sounds like you do, but you just have the MAP or multiple attack penalty.
Yeah, so it's that fact of if it's your like. So yeah. I think as I've read it, if you're doing it as your first attack, so if you purposely put yourself between two enemies so that they're flanking you, and then use quick reversal, that's a single action for two.
Yeah, and
So
the
you
multiple
just
attack
want
penalty is
to-
not very big anyway. At the first, because it's really just your first time. It's -5, right? So,
Yeah.
nail the
Even if
first
it
person
was
flat-footed. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very
It
creative.
is one action, but this one does have the press trait to it.
I just noticed that.
What's the press trait, guys? How does that work? I see that right here is the third thing: fighter, flourish, and then press.
So the press trait you can only use if you have a multiple attack penalty of some sort incurred already.
Ah,
So
okay. So it'd be 5 to
most often
-10.
cannot be used on the first strike. And the flourish will tell you that it can only be used once a turn.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you could pop out of stealth or just run into a situation where you're flanked, hit the first guy with no attack penalty, hopefully kill them, and then say you're going to do quick reversal on the two ones who are remaining who are flanked on you, but then you have a multiple attack penalty against the third strike or the second strike and then the third strike, but then it's calling it the second strike of quick reversal. So you actually have another action in the 3-action economy. It's like having 4 actions for one, so you actually going to have the 4 attacks total. Does that make sense? Yeah.
The great thing about it is both of those strikes for quick reversal would be at your current multiple attack penalty, rather than going like -5, -10. They'd both be in that scenario -5.
Yeah, that's really interesting. If you want to charge up there and especially if you did a range intimidation glare first, that'd be even nicer. Very cool.
Especially if you have an agile weapon, that'd make it even better.
Yeah, are there any big heavy hitting halberds or anything like that are agile weapons that anyone can think of off the top of their head?
Not off the top of my head that has like huge damage dice like the Great Axe. I think there are some that like a D8, possibly, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. But nothing that does huge amounts of damage.
Let's see. Maybe I can dig that with the background. That's cool.
But yeah, so he's a guy who's used to getting into fights, but prefers to get it overdone and quickly, and from the shadows. And then for more sort of like flavor, I took stuff like basic trickery, and I also picked up stuff like overlooked mastermind.
Are those all fighter feats?
No. Overlooked Mastermind is actually a half-orc feat.
Okay.
Because he is a half-orc.
That's the bonus
one of the
feats
ones-
down here. Okay, I see that now, next to
One
assurance.
of the ones that was key to the character concept was secret speech. And what that lets you do is learn a particular secret language. So in his case, he learned Thieves' Cant, because of the criminal element that he's dealing with. But for example, with that feat, you could learn the Druidic language as well, or maybe a campaign-specific one that your GM had in their world, for example. And then I also went for quiet allies as well, because the idea of like maybe if he had some people with him, he could then help them to sort of like match his fighting style
Mm-hmm.
of sneaking up and attacking first.
And Swift Sneak Experienced Professional too. What's this Ancestral Paragon and Die Hard, 3rd level and 7th? What are those all about?
So that was to do with just some general choices. I mean, Die Hard's a general feat, which means that you die at dying 5 instead of dying 4.
Okay.
And then Ancestral Paragon, can't quite exactly remember what that did for me, but it did something good to do with. I think that's what allowed me to go for one of my other ancestry feats, I think.
Yeah, it gives you a 1st level ancestry feat.
Yeah, someone should have Archive of Nethys open in the background.
I do.
For you guys who are watching a video, you're like, how can you find that in the book? What page is it on? You should have the web browser open to the Archives of Nethys, like the official SRD, system reference document supported by Pathfinder, by Paizo, and they have one for the 2nd edition and then the 1st edition. It's really great for searching because even their PDFs for their books are print-ready PDFs, and they're very heavy. And you try to search through it and start trying to type in ancestral, it's going to come up at 114 places. It'll be hard to find it. So that's the web is great. And the little phone app that people like to use, the Path Builder 2e, is cool while you're doing it because along the way it'll let you explore and see with quick pop-ups and tooltips what the different feats are from all the published books. So that's really useful too. And so with the Archives Nethys. The only thing with Archives Nethys that's tricky is if you can ahead of time filter whether you're looking for feats or monsters or everything else. Because if you just do a global search like in Google, you'll end up with something appearing in like 300 places. So it's kind of like if you're looking for a home to buy or something, don't type in house in America, whatever. So just to give a tip for anyone who's watching that stuff, that's a great way to...
Search engine on Archives of Nethys is really nice because it does separate it out that way. Like, oh, we found this word in this feat section, this skill section, this like weapon section.
Absolutely.
So as long as section you're actually looking for, generally nine times out of 10 you do find it.
Yeah, I don't have it up on a panel here, but people at home can watch, pull it up real quick, and we'll put a link in the description. It's a really great website. Now, does one guy run that website by himself? Does anyone know? Is it just one dude or a couple of friends?
Gosh.
I hope he's on the payroll. He better be.
At this point.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of work.
So people use it instead of buying the books, so I don't know if he's on the payroll. So
I don't know. If I was at Paizo, I'd pay that guy to maintain that. And
I think they do. There are multiple SRD sites, and that one is the official SRD.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some of their news announcements have mentioned a team. I don't know how big that team might be.
Yeah, I know from some of my video game industry stuff, we've had QA teams, a bunch of folks in Dublin and Ireland and UK and France and Germany testing our games, and we would give them lots of perks, like, free stuff that for them was like $500 worth of stuff. And anytime anything new would come out, we'd give them new stuff. And we couldn't pay them because they were interns, but I've had other situations where we worked on games like Doom where we actually paid people to test stuff all the time or do stuff on the side or start a website. But that website's fantastic. It's the go-to spot. I don't think it looks cool, but it's functional and it gives you really, really, really good information. The aesthetics of it are kind of like a database programmer kind of vibe.
Change it to the dark view and it's a lot better.
Yeah, I got the dark view. I like that one. So someone needs to give them some money so they can jam up the production value because it's probably one of the coolest resources out there.
It's still not that bad though. It could have just been
Pathfinder 1 SRD.
Oh God. Yeah.
Cool. It's still more thematic like that, and they have all the images for whether it's a reaction or one action or two actions on there, which is really handy. Because at a glance you know exactly what you're looking at, and it matches up with what's in the actual physical books.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, before I had to move everything online, was my go-to was just to pick up a physical book. But even then, I still used Archive for preparing monsters and stuff, because it was just easy to find the information and then print it.
Oh yeah. Another reason why Paizo, who will never watch my videos because they're mad at me or something, is that
Oh, whoa! Are you getting Paizo mad at us?
yeah, they're mad at me. They don't like me because I do AD&D. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking around.
Mm.
Their editor guy is super cool in the Facebook group. He's always super friendly and really fun to engage with. The other people, they don't say much, but I think they need to make, maybe when they come out of this huge lull of COVID-19, they need to have a very cool character builder that can tie into the archives of Nethys, because creating characters in this game is probably one of the most creative things of any RPG ever, and that's a pretty bold claim.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, I would argue they should get the guy who did Path Builder onto it.
there you go. There you go.
To be honest, you know, in my general work for what I do as my day job, we deal with making apps and stuff, and I can understand why he's only on Android, because it's cheaper to be a developer on Android than it is with Apple.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can understand why he hasn't done that for like free software to put it on Apple products.
Well, he can probably get a little ad revenue because he has ad banners at the bottom of his app, which are totally unobtrusive and well placed.
Yeah, he could do that, and a web version would be fantastic.
Yeah.
One that's just online. You know, I mean, something to just rival D&D Beyond, but not be as annoying as D&D Beyond, where you have to repurchase everything.
Yeah, that's a cash grabby. You don't like that.
Yeah.
What about Onslow Trask? What else do you want to tell us about his concepts? I mean, he's a pretty nasty guy.
Well, yeah, one of the first things that I picked up for him as a fighting feat was sudden charge, which is just such a good thing to get straight off the bat if you're going to be a two. Well, I said it don't even have to be a two-handed weapon fighter, but it's really good because you basically stride twice and hit in 2 actions. So like, as long as you end your 2 strides next to an enemy, you then get a free strike action at them, basically. So you're spending 2 actions to move twice and hit.
If you remember our silly sorcerer build, some of us had fleet. My little MMA fighter girl with too much strength, she had fleet foot. She was a human, so she could move 30, which is 6 5-foot squares. And if she had been a fighter and he picked up fleet, and if you picked up fleet and you were an elf, I think elves are 30. Pick up fleet 35 times 2 is 70 feet. That's pretty far. And 70 feet, smash the crap out of someone, and you've only spent 2 actions, and you can spend the other action to get 35 feet back. Yeah. So it's pretty nasty.
So for example, with that whole sneaking sort of scenario, because you're stealthing and you're ahead of their initiative, you sudden charge in, and they're flat-footed to you, so you've got that as a benefit. You're moving twice and hitting them all as 2 actions, and then you can hit them again as your final 3rd action.
I would pull back.
And if you're running into a group of guys, that 3rd action is going to be quick reversal.
Yeah, if you're flanked. Now, you had a sweep kind of move, too, if I remember correctly. I think I glanced at that, right?
The axe, yeah.
Yeah, the axe has a sweep trait.
Which is the whole thing of you can hit one person and then you can just hit the next person.
Do you have to kill them first, like in 3.5? 3.5 used to have an ability where you smash the crap out of one guy, and if they die, you go bam, 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 and hit the next guy.
That's the critical specialization for the Great Axe, which is if you crit the first person, you don't even have to roll anything extra. You literally just go on to the next guy, and if your initial attack for the first person would also beat the next guy's AC, you also hit him, and you'll deal just your damage. So it's not doubled like it was for the crit, it's just what you rolled a damage onto that guy. But if you have like a striking weapon, it includes the striking dice as well. So for example, if it was a striking great axe, that's 2d12, which would have been doubled. So those 2d12 would have been doubled for the first guy, and then you're just taking the 2d12 that you rolled and moving that damage onto the guy next to them.
And in the course of Onslaught, he's got a 4 strength bonus and a weapon specialization plus 3 to the 7. So if you roll a 12, you're getting a 19. But you said 2d12, right? So that could be 24 plus 7. So
yeah, if you
nasty.
using a striking weapon, yeah.
Which is pretty nice when you compare that to his hit points, which is 148. If you're fighting something that only had like 75 hit points, you could have them almost.
Yeah.
You get really nice, beautiful rolls.
At the very least, you'd be putting them on their back foot.
Mm-hmm. And that's when you start talking about alcohol with the plus 13 to lore. Just kidding. Go ahead. What'd you say?
He said, I think barbarians still get the traditional cleave feat, where if like you kill or knock someone unconscious,
That's what it was.
Within like range of you, within reach, that you can attack them too as a reaction. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how cleave was in 3.5, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So that's a barbarian specific thing.
So when does diplomacy come into play?
So obviously, he as a character, he doesn't necessarily plan on getting into these fights all the time.
Not a dumb brute, then.
No, I mean, and that's where his whole racial overlooked mastermind thing comes in. He's not dumb.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the smartest man in the world.
Well, 12 is better than me, so.
But he's not an idiot either. And the diplomacy is he's dealing with his patrons on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know how fantasy patrons can be, and bar brawls tend to happen. And so being able to resolve that peacefully is his preferred go-to, even if that has to be intimidating them. Mm-hmm. His preferred is obviously a nice, peaceful, just look, come on, guys. But if he has to intimidate them, it's there as well. And then, if he really can't get them to stop, then he can use his knowledge of alcohol to probably get them pissed enough where he can just chuck them out.
That's funny. That's great. Well, cool. That's a cool character. You guys want to jump on to the next one? Who wants to? Is that cool? Did you get a chance to talk about everything you want to talk about? I didn't want to cut you off. I'm not trying to do that.
Yeah, no, that's thing. I mean, and you've had the character sheet and everything up there where people can see stuff. So, I did take as part of the rogue dedication basic trickery, allowed me to take one of the rogues class feats. Mm-hmm. And I went for the one that let me take some spells that the rogue has access to.
Like Ghost Sound,
so I gave him
Shield?
Yeah, so I gave him Ghost Sound and Shield. Because Ghost Sound's along the lines of he's sneaking through somewhere and he just distracts some guys. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't want to be in combat unless he absolutely has to.
Mm-hmm.
If he can take out the head honcho and disband that group of criminals, that's the way he's going to do it, and he doesn't really want to harm anyone unless he absolutely has to. And if he does have to, then he's going to, eliminate them pretty quickly. And then Shield is useful because he's using a two-handed weapon, so having that extra bonus to AC is always a nice thing to have. Yeah,
and then you're able to take advantage of the 4 dexterity by just wearing leather armor or something like that. You're not a heavily armored walking wave of clunkiness. He's completely can move around with no penalties or anything.
Yeah,
and the proficiency is nice. So,
but the shield spell would put his AC up to 28.
Yep, that's awesome. That's very cool. All right, let's move on to another guy. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I'm excited to see what other people have built.
Who wants to go next?
Go next.
Okay, which guy is yours? Or girl, or whatever?
Zath. Here is Zath.
All right, let's see here. Zath, heavy step. I think we got a picture in here. He's the dude with the glowing basketball and the magnifying glass. But he has the Whip of Doom and a whole bunch of extra money and a yellow cloak on. Now, what's this Palantir thing in his hand? The guy looks like an elf. Is he a human or an elf? What's the character sheet say? He's a half-elf, witch-wary. Oh, interesting. Scorpion Whip. Cool.
The Lost Omens World Guide.
Okay.
Love that background.
That's neat. Tell us all about this dude.
I love it. So he is from Varizia. He's a half elf, and he kind of grew up in an area with a lot of magic. The folks who played Pathfinder First Edition, Thassalon is where you got the sin magic, where people had a lot of specialized magic. Those are where the Rune Lords are from. So I kind of had him built as a character who was affected by magic at an early age. He wanted to leave Varizia, but it's still a part of his culture. So in the picture I made of him, what's missing is a lot of his tattoos. It has tattoos have magical properties that let him use a lot of magic. So he's kind of whimsical. I really went against what I normally make because his attributes are way different than what I would usually give a fighter. He's very different.
Yeah,
And
tons of
one of the
intelligence and tons of wisdom and tons of charisma. He's really interesting. Keep going.
Yeah, it's amazing how much attributes you can make when you don't put your main stat at a 20. So I was really happy how that turned out.
Yeah, and his AC is, compared to Onslow, sorry if I mispronounced, Onslow Trask, it's 27 base AC, and he's at 29. So, I mean, that's one thing about this game system that's so cool is no matter what you do, you pretty much end up in the same little range band.
But that's a different person.
Oh,
You're on
sorry, I'm the
Guesser
wrong one.
Cheat.
That's a guesser. Yazath is over here at 28, so there we go.
Yeah, I have him in plate armor, but he enchanted it to be glamored, so no one can tell.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I kind of made him to be like he moved to Absalom to be a guard, and so he's very charismatic. He loves, working with the people. At the same time, like he has a lot of skills that allow him to deal with like the quote unquote riffraff. Looked at him as like if I make a 10th level fighter and I turn him into a guard, he's kind of going to be over leveled for most of the people in Absalom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
And so I
people,
put him as like, go ahead.
for people that don't know, we all agreed to make fighters. They're going to end up working together as guards in some adventure. We'll play them the following week or so, and so we rolled the dice or somewhere random and picked Absalom's location. That's why he's themed it this way. Anyway, go on. It's all you.
So I gave him the colors of Absalom with like the seafoam green and the yellow, and I kind of picked out a quarter of Absalom that he would be a guard in. And so I decided that, with all of his interests in magic, and since you get cursed lore with the Witchwary background, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to put him in the coins where all the merchants are, everything's being sold. He just kind of built more and more from there. So like his skills are all about like seeing magic. He's trained in every, magic skill, so he can identify magic automatically at low levels. And he can use all these little spells to identify things and read auras. I wanted him to be able to walk through the streets and, handle riffraff, handle people who are having arguments. I also wanted him to be able to inspect the magic items and be able to tell when someone's getting ripped off or if someone is selling a cursed item. And so I wanted him to have that ferociousness from being a fighter, but I wanted to have him be so charismatic that he was well loved.
Oh, that's great. I love that. That's a very cool theme. That's awesome. Yeah, very cool. So when you were making him, did you just kind of unfold? I know when I'm writing books and stuff, sometimes you have a character, you start off with one point, like you maybe started off with Thessalonia, and then as you started applying Absalom, then picking the quarter, did you kind of go back and forth and have your theme just kind of evolve before your eyes as you're building the character?
I'll tell you where I started. I started at the multi-class archetype that I gave him, which is Runescarred, which is specific to Varizia. And I was so happy with it and I loved everything about it because basically it's like, okay, you got hit with magic and it left a scar on you.
Mm-hmm.
If you put in enough effort, now you can cast magic.
Oh, wow. That's cool. And this Rune Scar dedication right here, which is a second level feat.
Started him out with that, and that's where I wanted to start because I love the idea. I love, the lore behind it, and I went from there. And then I was browsing through Archives of Nethys, and I found what I was looking for his weapon, which is a scorpion whip. It was in Pathfinder First Edition. It basically turns a whip into a lethal weapon, and that was what I had wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly how I wanted him to be able to like trip people from 10 feet away or disarm them from 10 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted him to just be ridiculous.
Yeah, like really, really awesome with the whip, very showy.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. Do you want to run us through your feat selections then that go down this theme?
Sure.
Okay.
So I was trying to give myself a wide variety because someone who's a guard, I wanted him to be well liked. I wanted him to have skills to be able to handle things that a guard would, and kind of treat him more like an NPC that I was building up to 10 level. So in my skill feats, I'm like, okay, he can recognize spells, he can, do what he needs to. He can, speak a lot of languages with multilingual. Then I wanted him to be able to like coerce or talk with someone or make an impression on like two people at once if he was handling an argument. And so many of the skill feats only took one for fighting, took Titan Wrestler, and the rest were all about what he would do as a guard.
Oh, that's really awesome. I could see him being a character in a film. That's awesome.
Right. So, and eventually I had so many left that I was like, I feel like if he spent enough time in the coin learning from all these merchants, I feel like eventually he would learn how to do all this crafting himself. So I think he's a master in crafting. I gave him like, magical crafting, and he's a specialist in blacksmithing. So he can technically put the glamour spell on his own armor. He can enchant his own whip. He can make the whip out of like special materials if he wanted to.
Oh, wow, that's really awesome. That's a whole show in itself is downtime. A month-long show. Because you can craft your own gear in this game, but you don't really do in anyone else's RPG ever. It's usually something that people put in MMOs. So,
right. And so like this is a character that would be really hard to play in a game right now because not a lot of people use downtime. But I was like, you know what? I like the theme of it. I like that this fits within his character. I like this is what fits within what you would expect from him.
Mm-hmm. He's really
and
cool.
Then,
go ahead.
Yeah, I took a lot of feats in Rune Scarred. I took the dedication, I took spell runes, I took the warding rune, and then I also took greater spell runes. So I've got a bunch of spells. Then I get a +2 on saves against enchantment. That's all about like what he'd been through and what he's trying to defend himself against and things like that. So I loved how much I could put flavor into him.
Mm-hmm. Wow, this is a really cool build. Really interesting. Now, warding rune, what's that? Is that related to your other rune thing you mentioned earlier?
The warding rune is in the Rune Scarred archetype, and it basically gives you a +2 to saves of a specific school. So I get a +2 to any saves from the enchantment school because I was looking through the list. I'm like, well, what are the spells that he would want to be, more resistant against? Like, okay, he's charismatic, he's been through a lot. He wouldn't want to be, someone being able to like use a command spell on him or a hold person spell on him, and so he's more resistant.
Cool. That's awesome. That makes tons of sense. Blind fighting. Gosh, I remember that from 3.5 in D&D. In case you get blinded.
No, it's honestly, it's a little different than what it was in first edition Pathfinder. I think anybody who's adjacent to you is not unnoticed. They're just hidden, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They're just hidden
I'll
from you
never
instead of
find
undetected. And so you have more abilities to kind of see things that you wouldn't normally be able to see. And I'm like, I think that kind of fits with him. I went a little overboard with some of his feats, to be fair.
What do you mean when you say you went overboard? Like trying to make him like a good for everything in every situation? Is that what you mean? Or from
I mean, I just made a sorcerer last time, and that's a lot of magic, and I love magic. This time it's like we're creating a 10th level fighter, and they'll be so strong, they'll have all these things that they can do, and I made someone who can do more spells. Like that seems to be the character I end up making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think the thing that's really interesting about this guy so far, because I know you got a lot more to tell us about it, is that just the theming. I mean, I've never seen a character in any book that's like this, but I can already imagine him. I mean, having the cool miniature thing built at Hero Forge is cool too, but I could see him even. It's like the Artemis Entreri character from the old Drizzt Do'Urden books. I mean, a really unique, crazy kind of Jarlaxle / character without being drow and all that kind of business. So it's a really interesting character. The whip thing is a drow vibe to it that I love from the old school days. Now, this whip, speaking of the whip, the scorpion whip, that's a Pathfinder 1 thing. What is a scorpion whip? Is it a chain, or is it a leather whip, or is it?
So basically, it's a leather whip with like a bunch of metal pieces attached at the end, and so it turns into a slashing weapon.
Gotcha.
And in Pathfinder First Edition, there was a whole debate about how you gain proficiency with the Scorpion Whip. Sometimes you had to have proficiency with just the whip and then you got it, or you had to take another feat to get proficiency with it. And there was a bunch of FAQs around it. But in Pathfinder Second Edition, it's so much more streamlined. I, found an Archives of Nethys in, I think it's an adventure path.
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, this is this style of weapon. It's like martial, I think. And, if you have proficiency with martial weapons, you have proficiency with this one.
Cool.
It was so much more straightforward.
Yeah, and the theme is much more interesting than just a, regular old weapon that everyone's seen from the Middle Ages or something.
Right. And I thought it was really nice that I made him a blacksmith because now he can make items out of other materials. So instead of just a leather whip with a piece of steel at the end, it can be a leather whip with like cold iron on it. And so now he can attack like, Fae and through their damage resistance. That has so much more flavor to where he can like get a different whip for a different situation. He almost turned a little bit into a Belmont, honestly, I felt.
What's the Belmont reference? I don't get that one. Tell me what that's reference.
Castlevania.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh my God, Nintendo. That goes way back. He had the whip. Was that what it was? Is his name Belmont? That character? Or was it one of the bad guys?
Yeah. That was the family name, if I remember correctly.
Wow, that was a long time ago. I vaguely hear the music in my head still.
Most of my Castlevania recent knowledge is from the Netflix series, which is very, very good. I mean, if you want a good example of a game adaptation into a series or a film, I'd point to that one straight away.
All right, that's cool. Combat flexibility, dueling, pairing, juggernaut. Tell us what that is. Teach us something.
So the Juggernaut is just a feature that they get. I think it increases fortitude saves. Somebody help me out.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what.
Yeah, that
upgrades it from.
Yeah, and then combat flexibility basically gives you the option to when you make your daily preparations, you can get a fighter feat of I think 8th level or lower. And you can change that every time you do your daily preparations. So I gave him dueling parry. I was looking for that feat. The class feature allowed me to take a feat and kind of supplement all the feats I was putting into the RuneScar dedication. The dueling parry lets him take an action like you would to raise a shield or use a shield spell and add +2 to your AC. And so I'm like, well, this is great because he's already got high AC from wearing full plate, and now he's got even higher like he would if he was using a shield spell.
So when you decided to go down that route, you were like, I'm not going to be a dex machine. I'm going to sacrifice my dexterity down to 12 and make up for the AC in other means. Is that what? So you weren't going to rely on, you have like a dex modifier of 1, right? But isn't there the way the armor works in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it with plate is 1 would be all you would get anyway. Isn't that how it's set up? I think it's like 1 or 2. I can't remember the rule.
It's set up really interestingly because in 2nd edition, the way it works is that you have a cap based on how heavy the armor is. Then you take like a penalty based on how heavy the armor is, and you take a speed penalty based on how heavy the armor is. But if you meet that strength requirement listed under strength, I think for full plate it's 18. Since I have an 18 in strength, I don't take the check penalty, and I only take a 5-foot speed penalty. But I still have the cap on my dexterity only for my AC. I still add my dex for like any acrobatics checks or things like that.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, that chart's on 275. Now it says on this chart here the dex cap number is +0. How are you getting around that somehow? Because you probably built this in Path Builder, didn't you? So when it says
no, so I just got a fill-in sheet that calculates things for me.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't say anything. What else you want to walk through with this guy? There's lots here, a lot more to go through.
I think the only things, because I want to take up other people's times, when I took multilingual, I wanted him to speak a lot of different languages, and so I added some uncommon ones, but then I also added, I think I added Infernal just for the fun.
Nice.
If he's usually in the coins, like how often are you going to see like a devil or someone who makes deals with devils in a merchant quarter?
That's cool. You never know with the
Be surprised
with the Pathfinder Adventure Path. It never has dudes on mounted horses with crossbows. It's always something bizarre and crazy. Maximum adventure.
Servant of Abaddon comes up and
Yeah.
need your ability to speak Infernal.
Yep. There's no wolves or rats in anyone's cellar in Absalom. Cool.
And then the only other thing would be I had to choose a lot of spells that didn't, as much as possible, didn't use my spell DC. Like Read Aura doesn't. I don't think Gust of Wind does, and then See Invisibility, Hasten Stone Skin don't. And so I really tried to find things that wouldn't use my low charisma, even though my charisma is pretty high,
Mm-hmm.
so that I would still be pretty confident that the spells would be useful in battle when I needed them.
Cool. That's really cool. What do you guys think about this build?
Yeah, I
'Cause
really like it. I mean,
I think it's neat.
so far, even though we're just fighters, we already are filling some of the sort of like roles you'd see in a normal party makeup, without being different classes. We got the guy who can sneak and do a bit of that sort of side of things in my character. We now have the guy who can deal with recognizing what's going on in terms of magic and being able to do a bit of magic himself. I'm excited to see what's coming next as to what other things, because I think one of the brilliant things about Pathfinder Second Edition is you can just have a group of exactly the same class and they're all completely different, and they can still all, with a few dedications here and there, fill the same roles as a party of different classes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, it's really good.
that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, and it really crystallized in my mind the first couple times we all got together, is that you go to YouTube and it's all like, what's the best sorcerer and warlock build, and all these. Every game has that. Every game has this. What's the best A? What's the best B? Because everyone's been trained, and since 2005 to build whatever the meta is and all that kind of monkey business. And then the RPG tabletop role-playing games, they have that going on right now, especially 5th edition, and. In the old days, you just played whatever you wanted to be, and you hope you didn't get killed. And you die in character creation, or you die in your first adventure with 3 hit points as a magic user. So, but with this, you're sitting in the back and you have no spells, and you have darts. And in this situation, you're
Good
building a
old days.
character from a film or from a book or from a movie, and then you're gonna
Yeah,
play
this
it.
one, as far as the numbers go, you can build for the highest number. That's a thing that exists, but the numbers are so tight that why not take the couple of feats or sacrifice here or there to actually bring something really cool, because there are so many interesting things out there in the system.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then obviously you guys have fun making these too, because you can just do whatever you want. And sometimes as you're making it, that's why I highly recommend that Path Builder app for people that don't even own all the books yet, because it'll reference all the books you maybe not bought yet or whatever. It has all that data in there, and so does the Archives of Nethys. Very cool character. I like this. I like both of them a lot so far. This is great. Who wants to go next? Can we transition over to the next one?
Go next. You can guess, sir.
Sure. Guesser. This is this fella here. Let's get his character sheet up. All right.
It's funny, by the way, we both got untrained improvisation. These first 2 fighters both have it.
Now, what does that do? That's a feat choice, I'm assuming, yeah?
Yeah. That allows you to basically use the skills that you're untrained in.
Oh, okay.
Like all of the stuff that you would normally need to be trained in to use within those skills, you can do without being trained in them.
Cool.
Point. Lets you add your level to whatever skill checks you make with them, but you can't use abilities that you have to be trained in. If you're untrained, you get +10 because that's your level, but you can't use a trained skill.
Oh, okay, I see.
I was thinking of something else that allows you to do it if you're not trained in it. There's another one that you can get that does that.
Flaming, wounding, +2 striking, longsword and shield, beard. Oh my goodness, go. Tell us about Guesser.
All right. Oh, yes, as you can see, I gave him a few magical items, so.
Well, he's level 10.
Guesser would have arrived in Absalom after serving in the military of another nation. I think I kind of thought Multhune. He's basically one of the few survivors from a pretty disastrous battle, and he feels like his government sort of like them out to dry, so he put his walking papers and he moved on with his life. And Absalom, he just kind of leveraged his martial training into being a member of the town guard. He's pretty happy serving the community.
I wish I was happy serving the community, but I'm not. My community's not
That's
wearing
the great
masks,
thing
and
about a fantasy game.
they keep buying up all the chicken breasts and and all the toilet paper and all the Lysol. Yeah.
People are like, I want to go out and do stuff again, and I'm like, I want to stay in and paint miniatures.
I want to.
So
I
this is
love it.
great.
Teleworking is awesome. I don't want to go back to some stinky office. That's 2 hours of my life wasted driving back and forth every day. So anyway, tell us more about Gesser. I'm anxious like a child to look at your class feat section, but I want you to tell me where to go next. You want to stay on the first page? What do you want to do?
We can go to Feats. That's fine.
Because Feats is where all the do stuff things are.
Yeah, that's really sort of what defines him in the character creation process. So I went with a multi-class dedication as well.
Ranger.
Went into Ranger. The reason I did that from a messaging earlier in the week was that I kind of like the idea of him being a canine officer. So he does have a dog.
Oh, cool.
That walks the beat with him.
What breed of dog?
Contraband.
What breed of dog?
I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, then it has to be a Rottweiler, because Rottweiler's one of my favorite breeds.
All right, it can be a Rottweiler. Then.
There you go.
Great, so.
A very classy, intelligent, and well-dressed Rottweiler.
Or we'll call him Flash.
There you go.
Hi.
So this is probably an example of a character that was built a little more mechanically than thematically, although the theme being a canine herdsman, where I started from just to sort of have a little bit of an angle beyond, being a weapon. That sort of influenced a few of the decisions I made later on, but not too many.
Run us through the feats then, especially for people who don't know what they all are. You could do it quickly if you want to. Maybe just do the feat column first.
Sure. So we all have sort of the standard array of sold out fighter abilities, but one of the things I really liked, the way fighters work with shields, is that there are feats later on that you can take that give you more reactions. So you'll see that he has reflexive shield and
quick shield block.
So quick shield block gives him an extra reaction a turn. He can only use to raise his shield. I can do it twice.
And what's
I've already used it.
What's reflexive shield
damage.
do? Do you remember that one? Sorry, I'm like a little kid. I want to know all the details.
But that lets me add my shield armor class modifier to reflex saves.
Oh, okay. All right.
Basically, he can
Appropriately
duck behind his
named.
shield.
Appropriately named with the word reflex in there.
This guy's role in combat, other than using the dog for distraction effects, is basically to sort of stand in the middle of the battlefield and have everything sort of smash up against his shield.
Yeah, and kill themselves on it and didn't react all the time and nail everything black. But you're not using a spike thing on the shield, right?
Could.
Could.
Not currently, but that was one of the things I liked early on when I was looking at fighters for another campaign, was this idea that you just have this bulwark in the middle of the battlefield that everything that comes near it just gets whacked with a shield or stabbed with a sword, and at the end of the battle he's got a few scratches on him and there's a pile of bodies around him. So
you need to switch that wooden shield that he has in his miniature to a tower shield and put SPQR on the side of it and lots of dents.
Yeah.
There you
go. One of the things that we haven't overly sort of like talked about, which is universal for all of our fighters, is attack of opportunity, and how that's different to
The old
the sort of
school.
like many iterations of fantasy games that have gone before it, where everybody had it.
Tell us about Gesser of the attack of opportunity. Then let him tell us. How about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I
Teach
just thought it was
teach
worth
the
bringing
masses.
up.
No, it is worth pointing out. It is absolutely worth pointing out.
Well, Attack of Opportunity is a class feature to martial classes in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Players get it at first level, and barbarians and champions can use a feat selection later on in character development to also gain it. I think that's one of the really, really cool things about how you can make a fighter in this game very sort of crucial to the flow of tactical combat, is that they are just so good controlling that battlefield positioning.
Mm-hmm.
Either by dealing a lot of damage, or in my case, I like the idea of a guy that just uses his shield all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna be like punching the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
To damage this guy.
Yeah. And for
if you get fed up and try to run away, then he's going to use attack of opportunity on you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's you almost wish you had the sudden charge. You can chase him down and knock him down.
I could have it.
You could swap out something for that, but he's just frontline. Let's go, bring it on. The thing that a lot of people talk about is attack of opportunity or AOO is in D&D. What happens is this is one of the things that guys talked about for the developers of Pathfinder 2nd Edition at Paizo when they first launched the game, and they went to like one of the first cons. I forgot what it was, where they kind of talked and answered questions. They did a billion interviews with all these people, and even the publisher, I think it was Eric Mona, was talking about how in 3.5 and Pathfinder 1, and they weren't talking about D&D, but you get the situation kind of like EverQuest where everyone kind of gets bunched up or it gets to their spot and they never move because the fear of taking a step, without being the 1-step, 5-foot step, you're going to get nailed with attack of opportunity. So no one wants to die. So everyone kind of timidly decides to get in there. Once they get in there, they don't want to move, and combat becomes stagnant. Doesn't mean there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of actions happening. But with all this 3-action economy and this fluidity, especially with the sudden charge, I mean, you have casters with fleet that run 30 feet, wind up a 2-action spell, and you could be so someone could approach you. You can outmove their distance and cast a 2-action spell before they could even get to you. They have to blow 2 actions just to get back in range of you to even melee you. So there's not as much fear from the players. Like hill giants don't have attack of opportunity. I think only fire giants do. I think even frost giants don't have attack of opportunity. And so once you get to this level of the game, the fighter from day one at level 1 as a player has an attack of opportunity. So it's kind of a turn of the tide here. The players now become the nasty threat in the middle of the fray, and the monsters are not until later. And then when they get it, it goes, oh gosh, now it gets really scary. So sorry, I mean, I've gone a tangent, but go for it.
I took there, combat reflexes, gives me a reaction at the start of every character or bad guy's activation, so I can use for attack of opportunity.
So essentially, this one has the standard reaction, the one he can use to shield block, and the one he can use to attack of opportunity. So a maximum of 3, which is a really cool idea.
Wow, that's nasty. That's cool. I wonder if anyone doesn't get that. Explain that one more time for someone who's coming from 5th edition, maybe a little younger, and they're like, do what? Explain it for them.
You normally only get 1 reaction a turn. But this character has the potential for 3 or more. I get an extra reaction that I can use to raise my shield, and then I get a reaction that I can only use for attack of opportunity at the beginning of each turn when no, I read that wrong. But at each of your turns, gain your action for every bad guy. That happens later on, and I think at like level 9.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I basically, I do have, I got excited. But yeah, basically, I have 3 reactions a turn. So again,
that's a lot.
In anywhere near this guy and deciding to do anything other than to try to hammer through his defenses is just going to be really punishing.
Now, someone, one of the actions is manipulate.
A lot of trouble.
So do you get the attack of opportunity provoked by manipulate actions? Like someone tries to pull out a scroll or pull out a potion, is that going to prompt you to be able to react to it if they're in range of you, even though you're a longsword? If they're using an action to do something, can you disrupt it with any of your combat reflexes? Or is that just Or am I getting that embedded from another game?
Well, that's exactly how it works, including casting a spell, unless that spellcaster has an ability that says they don't
Mm-hmm.
invoke when they're casting.
So from a combat control perspective, can you do anything to stop someone from doing something when they're within 5 foot square of you, besides moving? Can you have any? Can you hit them, knock them down? I guess if your weapon, you're having a longsword though. That's a versatile weapon, isn't it?
Yeah, I went for the sort of standard guard build, but he could wield any weapon he wanted.
Yeah. Zathy, you're about to say something. Sorry, I cut you off, dude. Go for it.
There are certain circumstances where using attack of opportunity does disrupt the action.
Okay. All right.
It's not, that's not the main focus of it. Suppose if a shielded wizard tries to cast a spell and I stab him with my flaming longsword and he dies, I've disrupted his spell. So.
No, Zath, you were about to say something a minute ago, weren't you? Or did I misheard a click on the mic?
Oh, I was going to say something because I can't remember if Attack of Opportunity specifically said that if they're casting a spell that you get to use an Attack of Opportunity on them. And rules as written, I don't think you do unless it has a somatic, material, or focus component. Attack of Opportunity, you have to use a manipulate, a move action, or a range attack, or leaving a square during a move action. So if it's just a verbal component, like if I'm right next to the fighter and I cast the shield spell, that's just a verbal component. So I don't.
And you are correct.
I don't think that would prompt that. It's a little thing. That's a little itty bitty nitpicky thing.
Yeah, this is the word manipulate had stuck in my mind when I was reverse engineering Valero. So one of my, teach myself a video, teach myself the game type crap back in August of last year. But the attack of opportunity has this: if your attack is a critical hit and the trigger was a manipulate action, you disrupt that action. So that's where it stuck in my mind. But I don't want to detract from that. But that's what's very different with Pathfinder Second Edition. I think attack of opportunity is now starting to shine as a player ability and is no longer just a monster fear don't move element anymore. It now becomes about I'm an awesome fighter in the battlefield, and later on at higher levels you got fire giants. They're doing it too with big two-handed weapons that have a huge reach. But in the early days when you're first playing up to level 10 and stuff, you're a level 1 fighter and you've got an attack of opportunity. Someone tries to run past you with their 25 movement rate, you can swipe them down, so that's really strong.
I mean, some monsters do get it. I mean, orcs have it, so
Mm-hmm.
you're running sort of your standard low-level fantasy game.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting a lot of orcs and goblins, you're going to deal with it as well. But
True. Good
it's
point.
kind of fun as a game master to sort of watch that look of fear on a player's face when they announce their action and they're not sure if what they're fighting has attack of opportunity. They afford to do it. Should I not? I really need to drink that potion or I'm going to die. But if I do and he has attack of opportunity, he's going to hit me and I'm going to die anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
That I think is one of the things I really like about this game, as opposed to the other format running around.
Yeah, and what I've had in like some of my games with that with my players is where they'll have the beefier, tankier character test the waters and see if the creature does have it. So the rest of the party
That's
can then
cheating.
Go, it doesn't.
That's metagaming. Come on.
See if they know how to. See if you can. Go ahead.
They don't do it like overly intentionally, like pre-planned, but it's that fact of like if they're all bunched up on this one thing and they don't know if it has it or not.
That's
the
funny.
First person to like move away and do something new is generally the tank.
Intimidating glare and just running and fight. Come on now, you don't need to worry about that kind of business.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to say that last week when we were all playing our sorcerers, we were moving around a lot, but it would have been a lot different if all the monsters we were fighting had attacks of opportunity.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was worried about
Yeah,
that.
none of those ones did.
Yeah, they were nasty.
It's not really, really common. Probably good, but it is out there.
Yeah.
Again, that uncertainty, at least the first time. After the first time somebody moves and they realize the monsters can't poke at them, then everybody turns into a rubber ball bouncing all over the place.
Yep, then it becomes pinball.
That's fun too. So
Now, how about your
Yeah.
ancestry feats and other skill feats? You want to run through those too?
We can, sure.
Okay.
You know, again, my only real goal with this guy was for him to have the dog sidekick. So
Mm-hmm.
there's not other than his use of reactions. There's not a lot of theme here. I just sort of picked things that would help make him sort of well rounded.
Mm-hmm.
I made a few other sort of the choices that had to do with some skills and stuff like that. But versatile heritage just gives you an extra class feat. Well, that's natural ambition.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
My eyes are
Cooperative
drawn to
nature.
Hobnobber, which is a great treat from the UK, aren't they? I know my international treats.
Dogs, yeah.
I know my crisp flavors too. Hobnobber's level
Yeah,
10 skill feat. Tell us about that.
Again, where we're guards and we're walking around the city and we're interacting with the public, and just I made some choices that even though his charisma is not that high, he's still a pretty likable guy. You know, when the dog's not chasing down criminals and he's not on somebody with his sword, then he's going to be talking to business owners and citizens. So
Mm-hmm.
I made a lot of choices that sort of centered around that. I don't know why it says a there.
Yeah, it gives you're plus 16 diplomacy, so if you're having to do any kind of conversations like that. Oh, wrong character sheet. Nope, this is it. Guesser.
That's the right one. Yep.
Yep, that's right one.
So he's a bit of a talker when he's not thumping some miscreant over the head. He's knowledgeable in lore for the law. Thought it would be fun to have a printout of different codes for the type of laws and stuff like that. So he's the guy that knows that public urination is a violation of municipal code.
Expectorating is punishable by death.
So I just thought that would be a funny angle.
That's funny. That's cool.
He's a bit of a beat cop, but he's a likable guy, and between him and the dog, if something tries to sneak away, we can track him down. So,
cool.
Again, playing on that, where we're all fighters, but we're dipping into things that other classes can do to sort of build a well-rounded party, even though we're all basically just beats.
Mm-hmm. Now, going back to your the ranger dedication, is that where you picked up the dog pet type stuff?
Yep. So the animal companion comes straight from ranger class.
And basic hunter's trick, is that something to do with your range attack and distraction, with the pet can distract all over the AC of the enemy or something along those lines?
That's what gives me ranger class feat, which allows me
Gotcha.
to take animal.
Cool. I like him. He's cool too, man. And I don't know why you think 14 charisma is low. That seems high to me. I like that number. I think it's great.
I mean, I think somebody building to be a super smooth talker would have gone for a 16 or even an 8.
Yeah, but 20 strength. I mean, come on. This guy can.
And I have intimidate if I need it. So
Yeah.
If words don't work, then I'll just thump him over the head and drag him down to the stations.
That's awesome. Cool. That's Guesser. Shall we move on to Armand Harrow?
Sure.
All right. There we go. That looks like an elf, but it's a field medic human half-elf, right?
Yeah. So big thanks to Nardith on helping me colorize this little Hero Forge thing.
How'd you guys do that? Just do it in Photoshop?
Nardith's a backer, I'm guessing, of Hero Forge 2?
I backed the Kickstarter. Lucky me.
Oh, wow. So that's why you're not eating. So if you join their Kickstarter, you can color them. Are they going to be selling the miniatures pre-colored this way? Is there something like that going on? Tell us how that works in case people are interested in it.
Yeah, so there was a Kickstarter because usually they'll make the miniatures and then you can paint them if you want. But they sent out a Kickstarter where they can now color them. They can add all these, features and effects to them. You can tell on the shield it's like glowing. It looks like there's some brightness to it, and so does the metal on the shield. And so I backed the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter since closed. I don't know if you can still get access to what's now the beta, because you can't get the color miniatures yet. But I have beta access, and then I get a free miniature once the features open and they start selling them.
Cool.
So he was able to send me a link that kind of listed everything he had made for his miniature, and I just added color to it. I didn't make any other adjustments.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Armand, all you, man.
Yeah. So I always start with one like central idea, and it always comes from some different random place. Either it's story, and I wanted him to be from this certain place, or it's mechanical, and I wanted to sort of showcase a certain type of feat or a different archetype. This one came on the back of seeing an archetype that wasn't in any of the books that I own and being really jealous. So he took something called the Bellflower Tiller archetype, which was in the Age of Ashes adventure path.
Oh, okay.
And I just thought it was such a cool idea. It's this very underground railroad for the halfling slave trade in Cheliax that was going on. And when I knew we were building guards, when we decided that in Absalom, I wanted to bring something different to this guy. I wanted to have him have some conflicting viewpoints with what his day job was. So I kind of built him to be like the local safe house manager for the Bellflower Network,
Oh, that's
trying to
really
get people
cool.
to safety and out. And so when I saw some of those feats, I realized that there are a couple of things in the human ancestry that aren't often taken advantage of that I thought could be really cool. And so I wanted to see, okay, you got cooperative nature, which I did spot on Steel Blue's character. But when you have the cooperative soul one at 9th level, the two complement each other really well. So they're both based off of the aid action
Mm-hmm.
in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And with the aid action in this game, you're going to use one of your actions on your turn to prepare your reaction in service of one of your party members. So whether it is trying to aid them on an attack roll or a skill check, that's how you're going to prepare that aid action. And essentially you are, unless the GM decides otherwise, you're rolling at a DC of 20.
Oh, wow.
With a relevant skill check. So if you have that skill, you can aid them in that skill. You can try to make that 20 skill check. And if it's a success, they get a +1. If it's a critical success, they get a +2.
Yeah, so you're helping your
Failure,
comrade do
not so
something.
good. They don't really get anything.
Uh-huh.
But if you are a master in that action, so the ranks of proficiency, trained, expert, master, and legendary, if you've reached master in that action, you're now giving them a +3. If you've reached legendary in that action, you're giving them a +4.
Especially the
So the
survival.
cooperative
yeah.
nature is going to, I'm trying to remember what that first one was. I think, that's the human one that gives you a +4 on that check to aid.
Okay.
So he'll give you a +4 on the check to aid, trying to hit that 20, or if you break the 20 by 10, get the 30, you have that critical success, which is really neat. Then you have the ability to, with the cooperative nature, I'm trying to remember that one without looking it up.
I got it right here.
Or cooperative soul, sorry.
Cooperative
the 9th
soul.
level one.
Here it is. It's right down here in the lower right corner. This is all in the human ancestry, basically races section of page 57 or so.
Yeah, thanks.
Keep on with your comrades and maintain an even greater degree of cooperation with them. If you are at least an expert in the skill, which you are, you're master in survival. You're aiding. You get a success of an outcome rolled to aid in any other critical success. So basically, it's giving you a success, isn't it? Any outcome.
So if you fail or critically fail, you still succeed. If you
Yeah.
critically succeed, you still succeed. But you almost can't miss to at least give that +1.
Yeah, that's a
So
reliable.
cooperative soul shows up at 9th level. And so that's one of the human ones that I definitely wanted to take advantage of. But when I saw the Bellflower Network stuff that had to do with movement speed and this freedom of movement, all these little gimmicks to sort of, I'm traditionally a support player when I am playing.
Wow,
So
40.
when I'm given the task to build a fighter, it's going to be a support fighter.
Yeah, and your speed's
so-
40 too. That's where that's coming from, isn't it?
Yeah, so that one, if you pick up Nimble Elf, since he's a half elf, and then you pick up Fleet from General Feats, and then the Bellflower dedication itself gives you another 5.
Wow, that's fast.
And Tiller's drive there at 10th gives you another 5. So if he takes off his armor, he's running at 50 per action.
Wow, that's crazy fast. That's really far. That's twice the movement of a standard human. Just for people who don't know.
So there are a couple of things that he picked up. I thought that it was really interesting. I'm big on the actual campaign setting and the deities of Paizo's Galarian and everything like that. So when I started looking in the Bellflower network, it immediately clicked in my mind. I've had a player before that played a paladin of Milani in the first edition. Milani's this sort of epitome of chaotic good. Anything that's absolutely against what would be good will be absolutely eradicated and shown no mercy. And so I pushed down that route with him as well. That's why you'll see the Morning Star. And one of the coolest things about fighters is even at the earlier stages around 5th level and moving into 10th, you have that fighter weapon mastery there at 5th, where you get to pick a group of weapons. It's just a small type of weapon, so I can use clubs, great clubs. This Morning Star counts as a club, and you get mastery in that attack roll. So now when he's aiding on an attack, he also gets if he critically succeeds, he also gets that +3 bonus to aid the other person's attack.
Wow.
So if you're looking at a third action and wondering what to do with it, and you have this aid action, the aid action is not impeded by your multiple attack penalty because you don't make the roll until the other player makes their action.
Right.
So you get that +4, and then you try to hit the critical success at 30 with your attack roll, which is a +21. Pretty solid chance there.
There you go.
And so if you critically succeed, you're giving that person a +3 instead of the +2 on their attack roll. And with having a bunch of fighters, that first attack roll is going to be much more likely to crit than the second or the third. And that fighter weapon mastery not only gives us mastery in that type of weapon attack, but with that type of weapon, you also get access to their critical specialization. And that's where that great axe will come swinging at the next target in line. That's where the sword will put that enemy flat-footed until that player's next turn, dropping their AC by 2. And that's where Armand's Morning Star is going to shove people. So the club category is going to let you be able to push people away. I think it's 5 feet. It might be 10. There are a couple of different things there with the shield blocking and the aggressive block and shove that are able to put someone flat-footed or shove them away, which sounds reasonably cool until you start thinking tactically about that in combat, where you are actually pushing people away, forcing them to use one of their 3 actions to come back
in the melee. Yep.
So it starts to chew up action economy on the enemies.
You could push them into someone else's attack opportunity too, wouldn't you? Go ahead. What are you gonna do?
No, it doesn't work that way.
No, how does it
Wished
work?
it did, but it.
No, they have to actively do the move for that to come into effect. If you're pushing them away, it wouldn't incur attack of opportunity, unfortunately. It would be great if it did, because the synergy...
Oh my gosh, it would be ridiculous if it did.
That would get ugly.
That would be when you'd see people just making fighters and doing shield walls all over the place.
Well, in classical history, that worked quite well for over 2,000 years almost. So then, if that's not the case, if we can't push or shove someone with Titan grip and all these other kind of things and push them into range of our buddy 10 feet away and he can get an attack of opportunity, so you're saying that can't happen, right? Is that what you guys are saying?
Well, right, but the opponent chooses whether to be flat-footed or to be moved, and as soon as they allow you to move them, you dictate the direction. And if say they were near a wall, if your movement would force them to be into the wall, they can't be physically inside the space of the wall, so then they have to become flat-footed. So there's a little bit of push and pull that ends up happening.
Right, that one's on the aggressive block. And on the critical specialization of the club, there's 0 choice. You are getting shoved.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
So I think the club crit specialty specifies away from you. It doesn't say you get to pick, though the aggressive block does say if they elect to be pushed, you get to pick where to push them.
Yeah.
So powerful shove sort of heightens that and makes it a little bit further out. Also, at that point, if you are shoving someone and they do hit a wall or some sort of impediment, they're taking your strength modifier in bludgeoning damage.
Ow.
Yeah.
Which in this
The
case,
Bellflower dedication, as well as giving you the 5-foot speed boost as a person, it's a grouping game that's built around sort of farming terminology to sort of move people to freedom, and they allow you to pick 6 people and add them to what is called your crop. And so you can select PCs, NPCs, and add them to your crop and say, these people are with me. These are the people I'm looking out for. And at that point, they are able to use your overland movement speed. Not your combat movement speed, but it'll still get you across town if you're a troop of guards pretty quick. So they'll allow you to use the overland movement speed for your crop, and then there are a couple of different feats in that Bellflower dedication or Bellflower archetype that give some benefits to some of the other members of your crop. Tiller's Drive is one of them. It boosts my speed 5 feet again, but it also gives everyone in my crop another 5 feet to their speed, as long as they maintain 60-foot distance from this character.
Yeah, so it's like having a group bard buff from EverQuest 1. You got a run speed buff for people, but it's an overland movement speed, not combat. So if you're getting across town quickly, you're not doing the chase mechanic like in the Game Master's Guide or something. But if you're moving quickly and rapidly, that in a role-playing situation, that could be very effective, like trying to get to the ship.
So the
before it
Bellflower's
leaves or
dedication gives you the overland movement speed, but the Tiller's Drive actually gives you that 5-foot boost to the combat's movement speed.
But your crop from Bellflower, say you have a part that you guys are all buddies with Gesser and Onslow and Zath, you could dedicate them as being part of your crop, or do they have to be NPCs, you said earlier? Like, is it a group thing? Like
They can be either. And I thought that was an interesting gimmick to bring up if I ever played this character for like an extended period of time. He can develop some interpersonal issues with those that he is traveling with. And all of a sudden, somebody else in the community is part of his crop rather than you are. Yeah, he's still working with you, but you no longer get the speed boost. So the mechanic behind that one was that you have to spend 10 minutes in conversation with someone to sort of move them into your crop, and you can never have more than 6 people.
Cool. And Juggernaut we talked about before, so that's pretty interesting. The Bellflower dedication, Tiller's Drive, that comes from one of the new books, doesn't it? Or you said it comes from Age of Ashes. Where did it come from?
It comes from Age of Ashes.
Age of Ashes, which is a Adventure Path. Cool. That's one thing that they do. It's an evil, diabolical trick to make us spend more money. Is thank God for PDFs. Is they expand the game. It's not just old school AD&D. For any of the old schoolers that are watching these videos and interested in Pathfinder and like the rapport all of us have going together, which is really fun. It's not like the Vault of the Drow where there's just a Drow and a new Mesodemon in the back or something like that. They add feats and they add ancestries, they add weapons and all kinds of cool stuff. So the game is constantly expanding your options as a player, and that's why when you use the Path Builder app, if you don't own the book yet, you can start building stuff that you don't even own the book for, and then you might be like, I got to get the book because I want to have it. So it's a neat kind of friendly way to constantly expand the game, and I think because the game's biggest strength is around creative character, as long as you don't go wacky with it and start adding in gunslingers or machine guns, I think that element of the game just always be interesting, What do you think? Go ahead.
There'll be guns eventually, I think.
I feel sure they will. They said they would. They said they would do it in August of last year.
Well, there's a whole entire area designed for in Galarian that's got guns. So
I love this setting. I don't talk about that area.
I like
think
it as a concept, but it's very much like I'm there like, well, if I was going to do that, it would be in this area, and you're not leaving it.
Yeah, that's funny.
just think if you want to do that, there are games that already have it. I don't know, maybe I'm a bit
Yeah.
of a purist, but
I'm the
It's
same way actually.
like in Numeria, where you have all the lasers and the robots that have crash
Yeah, I
landed
don't
and
like that.
stuff.
That's too much Barrier Peaks / Monty Cook for me, man. So
But the great thing about Pathfinder's sort of like setting is the fact that it has a bit of everything for everyone. So no matter what you want to sort of like do, what your flavor of fantasy is, there's a place that has that.
yeah, all modeled around the Mediterranean Ocean. I mean, come on, North Africa, Mediterranean, Cyprus, Absalon is Cyprus or Crete, and there's just a big lake in the middle of Germany. How did that get there? That's Lake Geneva in Switzerland, made a lot bigger with no smoke on the water. So, but well, it's still you, man. Armand, tell us more about Armand Harrow.
Yeah, story-wise, I just was trying to justify how did I go for this build? Where did this character come from? So all of that came in from these little mechanical decisions and different facets I wanted to play around with and see if I could get to click together. And I was thinking, since this guy would probably be running the local safe house in Absalom, which is a city that is not in the slave trade as much as actually enslavement, but there are some things that go on under the radar there from different influences, and so he would be trying to keep some refugees safe inside the city while still upholding his position as a guard of the city. So I was thinking that he is a half elf out in likely Ravenel or somewhere, or some part of old that had tried to push for independence recently, had witnessed early on that these halflings largely were being treated unfairly, and maybe one of them helped him out, and this is how he got pushed into sort of this route. I also wanted to select a deity from him or for him, since I'm always big on that sort of direct tie to a setting. As a player, I want to give the GM a tool like that to work with and to use to sort of loop my character into the game as well. So even though he's a fighter, he hasn't picked up the champion dedication, he hasn't picked up the cleric dedication. I have taken Melanion as a deity who is sort of a proponent of uprisings and unrest.
Oh, okay, that
And
ties
so,
in. Yeah.
yeah, she's very much an embodiment of chaotic good. And she's got a holy symbol that is a rose growing out of blood-soaked soil. And so that's where a lot of this colorization came from when I was talking to Nardeth about it. And her holy weapon is this Morning Star. Hence, I would opt for the 1d6. Not only does it have that nifty critical specialization feature, it is important to the character based on his choice of deity.
Awesome. I love that. He's very
There
well
are a lot
integrated.
of
Yeah.
options that he could have taken and gone different routes. There were a lot of really interesting shield feats. The one that Steel Blue, forgive me, I'm forgetting your character's name.
sir.
The one that you picked up to increase and give another reaction that has to be a shield block. There's the
Combat
one
reflexes?
that is there's the one that's a
reflexive
Guardian's
shield.
Deflection, where you can shield block for an adjacent character. So there's a lot of things where you're getting, I think that's Battlefield Surveyor, the one that all fighters get to, where you can select. Oh wait, no, that's the it's what, the 8th level one.
Quick
No,
shield
the
block,
9th
is that
level
it?
one. So the one that gives you that level 8 or lower fighter feat.
About flexibility.
So that one all the fighters have. I don't know why it's not showing on the character sheet, but it you'll be able to pick up if you feel like you need reflexive save, if a dragon's invading the city the next day or something like that, and you really need that reflex save to be a little bit higher, you can pick that one up. or most likely his usual one is going to be that guardian deflection to be able to shield block for someone else using his reaction. Because there's a nifty thing that they put out in one of the most recent books, the Gods and Magic one, where all of the deities, or a lot of the deities that they put into that book, they have these divine intercessions where the GM gets to look at the deity and say, okay, so if you do something good by this deity, you have a minor boon. And these are all on Archives of Nethys now too.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a minor boon, and Milani's is once when you roll a failure on deception or stealth to protect uprising from discovery, you critically succeed instead. So it's a
neat.
cheat death on one of those skill checks.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's really
Yeah.
cool, because that
And-
role won't happen often, but when it does come up, you're going to be. It embodies the theme of the character, its passion, its beliefs, its ideology, and all that kind of mixes together.
Yeah, and that moderate boon is the one why he has, and I named the feat wrong, it's the Shield Warden feat. That's the one why combat flexibility is being burned for Shield Warden most of the time. That shield starts to bloom with razor sharp thorns, and so if you meet the prerequisites of the feat, you gain the feat, or even if you don't, you gain the feat. And if you do have the feat, which he technically does, or he'll pick up later, that if your shield takes damage from a melee strike and defense of your ally, that attacker takes piercing damage equal to half the shield's hardness.
Wow, that's
Which
nasty. If you had a really
isn't
good...
a lot of damage on normal shields, but if you start looking at magical weapons and magical equipment, the hardness can go up a little bit.
Yeah.
Around 10th level, he'd have access to something around 10 to 13 hardness.
Yeah, and that can all add up as well. That's cool. I love this character's theme. In fact, I love all the themes of them. I think the thing that I think about Armand Harrow that's really cool is this the whole deity and the theme is driving this fictional character, and then you're able to build the character to fit this fictional theme by taking little tidbits that seem to be connected. So the little tidbits along the way are driving towards this overall theme, and it's driving the color selections on the shield and what weapon he's using, and then what his role is going to be in Absalom and where he came from, and all these things are coming together. You know, if you were sitting down writing a novel and you had to think up all that stuff, this would be like the best character generator system for coming up with an interesting, unique character to be in a an epic tale or an epic story. So I really, really love that. What do you guys think about Armand Harrow?
Another great character.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you can make sort of like a support character out of a fighter that isn't necessarily supporting in conventional means, like with healing and stuff like that. It's all about sort of like doing that aid action and taking advantage of that, which in a group of fighters is really helpful.
It's nice to see that you used one of the deities that's not like in the main pantheon and the main gods in Galarian. I think she's in one of the like supplemental sections of Gods and Magic, or like the second section.
Yeah,
I love
she's
how you
just outside the core.
Yeah.
You said she is or is not in the core?
No, just outside.
Okay. And what were you saying then about that? Like that you like the fact that he chose one that's kind of outside the standard Nethys / whatever type pantheon that everyone picks from.
Yeah, there's so many options, especially the way that they're kind of statting out the main information in all the deities. They all have, main weapons, colors, ideals, anathema, all these things that can help pull in story elements. And so even the minor gods get a full page of what would you do to make this god happy? What would you do to piss off this god? And so the book itself was utterly fascinating.
Yeah, and that's one thing about our last adventure with Desna. With the picture of the little halfling character with the butterfly belt buckle, and then the idea that they scratch and make all these markings on the old ruins, and how those things were very easy to kind of connect them all together, even though he died a horrible death.
He had it coming.
Huh?
He had it coming, to be fair.
There we go. Yeah, he had it coming from a year previously, if I understand the story correctly. Is that what happened with him? Did he get wiped out the year before and someone's doppelgangering him, or did it happen recently? That's one thing I thought about the adventure from a story perspective. After, can you You told us about the end, what kind of like what the deal was, like the end of the Netflix show. Confirm
Yeah,
from.
he was taken out quite a bit before. So yeah, this thing had been impersonating him for a while.
I guess we'll have to find out one day why.
Yeah, but we avenged him.
Oh yeah.
He
Eh,
can rest easy.
We're sure he's a very nice halfling that we never met.
There we go.
Yeah,
Looks like
I
one.
mean the thing pretending to be him was nice right up until it revealed itself. So
Mhm.
tried to kill
I
us.
like to imagine if it was doing its job correctly, then he was probably just as nice.
Mhm. We'll be sure to check those corners again next time. And then we have Zath, right? So, what do you guys think of Zath tonight from Nardeth, the Witch-wary fighter? Which is this dude here, the magical elf scorpion whip. I love this character. I thought he was awesome.
Mm.
Always love interesting choices of weapons for fighters. There
Definitely.
are the ones that do the big flashy damage, and all of the things, all of the traits that Pathfinder has come into play really well there. But then there are these really sort of niche weapons that do all kinds of crazy nifty things that just don't have the damage die of the other ones.
Mhm.
So I like that choice. I like the rune scar dedication. Thought that was cool.
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
making attacks of opportunity at 10 feet. That's nice. I like that.
There we go. They can just scratch them kind of hard, but you can also trip them, can't you? You get tripped with that scorpion whip. You're Indiana Jones style.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got a very
But
high
you
athletic.
also said that whip does lethal damage, right?
He
Yeah.
did say that. And tell people what lethal damage is who don't know yet. It's one of the traits associated with weapons, if I'm.
Yeah, it's the default damage that you deal with a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
A regular whip would deal non-lethal, which wouldn't.
Okay, I got you. I didn't know that. I learned something. So it
Wanted
does
to
real
do-
damage, not imaginary temporary damage.
Yeah, if you wanted to do real damage with a standard whip, there is a negative to your attack roll to make it lethal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's obviously harder
Oh, okay.
to hurt them with something that's designed
Just to give
to
you lashes.
yeah.
Yeah. And then we have Gesser. What were you guys' thoughts on Gesser? You know, you don't remember him recently. That's a frontline man right there. He's ready.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love the idea of being a guardsman with a dog. It was giving me Darkest Dungeon vibes with the one character you can have in that has a dog with him.
Yeah.
Great game.
Yeah. Really cool game. 2016, I think, is when it came out on Steam. Very fun. And of course, Onslow Trask, our former bartender, NPC turned international superstar, sneaky bastard, two-handed weapon type dude. I hope he doesn't have bad breath, but he knows a lot about drinking. It seems.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, he definitely doesn't have infected gums.
Let me pull this picture up for people who've forgotten. Sorry, I'm behind on the picture clicking. Yeah, I love this picture. The nose ring and the haircut is like the Doom guy from 1991 or 92.
Yeah.
Jeez.
He's got the Doom guy haircut, and he's got this kind of unsure eyes and the underbite.
I think those are mutton chops, not a mullet that's coming out from the back.
Yeah, it's like that president from Vanderbilt or whatever his name was or something like that. I can't remember.
It's the classic bartender sideburns.
Yeah, that's awesome. These are all very cool fighters. What are we going to do with them? We're going to go to Absalon and play something, you think?
Yeah, sure.
Well, here's the challenge we'll have to do. It may take us a while to figure it out. Is I don't have any cool maps of cities. So we could. I don't have no problems with us. Let's be bad English. I don't have any problems of us using Paizo's battle maps. My work is killing me lately. There's just so much
There's
going
a bunch
on.
of stuff just if you search Google too. That's what I've done before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If whoever wants to figure it out and run it, I would love to help the game master with some storyline NPC type stuff. like maybe the inciting incident, like write a little one-page inciting incident that the game master could read to the party, and I can be a fly on the wall instead of me interjecting. Maybe I can help out. It'll help me learn game mastering a little bit better. If one of you want to game master the actual mechanics, and maybe I can help a little AI planning. Might be awkward. I don't know. What do you guys think about something like that? I like to leverage my storytelling skills, but not get in the way of the combat flow.
Yeah.
But who would want to? Who wants to create something for that?
I'm moving next week, so
Okay.
I
Well,
will not have this slot open next week.
Well, we can always push it back. We're not in a rush, and no one's paying us to do this. We can do this when we want to do it. But I just want to throw the idea out there. Maybe let it settle in minds, and we'll chat about it later in Discord when people are free. But I think it would be really awesome to have all four of your characters play together.
Maybe we could just throw out some feelers and maybe get a guest DM and all play, and then have somebody else do the scenario possibly.
Yeah, we could do that too. If we can get someone to come join us.
I also was having just had a bit of a thought as we were wrapping up here too, that these are four characters that are very comfortable in exploration mode. Even though they're very combat capable, they all have a thing they do that isn't tied to just dealing damage with a weapon, which is another sort of great feature of this system where
No, I mean, I hate to.
Other games where you finish the adventure, you go back to town, you sell your loot, you buy more healing potions, and you're right back out on the road. You know, so these guys are members of their communities. They serve a purpose outside of just.
Here's an idea.
Thumping bad guys.
So Onslow, what we'll do is we'll take any episode of Vera, right? We'll take anything from CTV1 or whatever. We'll take an episode of Vera, just change all the millennials out for locals that live in Absalon, right? And then these guys will have to solve this murder mystery, and maybe there'll be a fight at the end. Could be something like that. Could be something that showcases we showed a lot of combat last time. Maybe it's something that showcases what it's like to solve a story with these characters. As long as it's not boring, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the theme that we were sort of going for, I know I didn't really sort of go with the whole guard thing, but you know, he could be strong in become a guard anyway, or maybe he's like the contact of the seedy underbelly that the guards have, possibly.
You're retired. You're retired or something, but you know. We still come to you when we need help. So
there's all kinds of stories you could weave.
Something like that.
Because you know a guy. You know a guy that knows a guy.
I know a guy who knows a guy.
Band back together.
One of my patrons once said that if you ever need,
there's Leo gets whatever Leo needs. Leo gets it for you. You could also do something tied to with Armand's strong Bellflower dedication, Underground Railroad, Civil War, American history type thing going on.
Yeah, I was already thinking of ties for that. Like maybe mine and his character work together. Maybe the refugee sort of like bit is part of the bar. Maybe underneath in the basement somewhere.
Or someone's been abducted and sold into slavery. They're being traded, and you know that the traders are going to come through Absalon, but you guys have been working together for years, and now you're rejoined together in Absalon to find, Gesser's sister. Or, there's all kinds of millions of stories. So what we can do is we can throw out some inciting incident ideas back of the novel blurbs and see, because we can find maps of anything. I mean, the maps don't have to be animated on Real Junk. It can just be a good battle map. And we can even do a Theater of the Mind. We can just have a picture of a map of the whole city and just show people what it's like to play with Theater of the Mind, too. It doesn't have to be a miniature moving scenario. So
Exactly. But I think definitely maybe focus on the exploration mode and show that off is a good idea.
I'd like that's a good idea. Yeah.
Especially if you're going with the guards and like they're having to solve like a crime.
Or your abducted daughter, all kinds of things. Sister, who knows?
Yeah, I like the idea that it starts off as something simple and then ends up being, worthy of a 10th level fighter dealing with.
Oh yeah.
Because I like to feel the sort of like character comedy would come out of like, we're experienced. Why have we been sent after this really simple thing? And then it ending up being like, oh, that's why. Even though the superior sending them on that particular errand might not even know that it is going to be something that their capabilities are meant for.
Yeah,
This
that's
guy
why I think.
jumped bail over a littering charge, and you're making me go get him?
Yeah.
I think sometimes family is a great reason and motivator to do something.
Let's say
you
we're
know.
all human in some shape or form. We can all have the same parent, technically.
I mean, we've got
We
matching
talk
nose
about
rings there.
Yeah,
the half ancestries.
yeah. Dad's coming back in town. Everyone polish their
But
shoes.
somebody was a bit
Maybe the captain of the guard is all of our father.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I tell you what, we'll chat about that offline. So I think we agree we want to keep showing off neat things that people have never seen before. People saw combat last time. They can watch plenty of people's videos that show people fighting and giggling in front of webcammers. We want to showcase stuff that's really buried in the game that's magical. So from a thematic perspective, I think the idea that you guys have of doing something that's exploration mode that involves the guards trying to do something, we'll come up with some plot. We'll throw some plot ideas around. I'll get out 76 patrons from Traveler, and you never know what we could come up with. And we could find something that's a motivation where someone just really needs to proctor the story, and then someone else, then someone can game master the checks and where they're going to go and who they're going to talk to, and then maybe there'll be a climax at the end. It's kind of an unforeseen twist that no one expected. So who knows? But you're moving, and people will be busy, so we'll just stay in touch this coming week, and we'll keep the schedule loose. We don't have to promise anything. How's that sound?
Yeah,
That's good.
All right, gentlemen, and especially folks that stayed up way past bedtime in the United Kingdom. I appreciate you all spending time and getting these characters together. I hope that people learned a lot, and just once again, it's just showing off the strength of what you can build in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And I'm looking forward to getting copies of free books from Paizo for all of us. For all our free marketing content we're creating.
nice.
be great. Though I bought most of them.
Oh, well, then we don't need anything. That's okay. We'll leave it at that.
Whoa. You get like advanced copies of the Advanced Player's Guide or something. Like, let's aim high here.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic.
They have all the extras too, the spell cards and
Mm.
Yeah.
monster
I've
It'll take some
tokens
bling.
and-
It'll take some bling.
I've got the condition cards in a card binder, and I have to say that was one of the best purchases I made for this. Having all those conditions just on cards and being able to just flick through pages. I've organised them in alphabetical order so I can easily find one and then take it out and hand it to
the player. Yeah, that's a good way to track those debuffs and stuff on it. It's a good way for you to remember what the hell it does, because the GM screen, it's all one panel on the GM screen. You have to squint to read them all, especially at my age.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even take some of their new coffee that they're.
Oh my god, I saw that.
I mean,
it was like vomit goblin or something coffee.
The accessory I'm wanting to get next is the battle cards for the monsters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's like get a bull clip and then stick that on top of your game master screen, and on one side you've got all the stats, and then on the other side
they've
got a tarot card sized piece of art.
Tarot card side things would be great, because that's one of the biggest problems. You want to show something, a cool picture from their bestiary, but they always got all the formatting of the blocks of text jammed up against it, and so you end up kind of revealing the name by accident, and it takes time and energy to like with the shadow type characters we had last week, or wispy cigarette smoke guys, or whatever the devil they were. They were bad. They were catalytic converter monsters. You couldn't. I had to mark away all the words and the text and everything. It was kind of awkward. They really should do that, because when people can see a picture of the enemy, even though there's not a miniature, it really helps. And I think the idea of tarot card size, which are larger than normal, would be not this pawn size stuff. These guys are a printing company. They print these little battle maps all the time. Some of them are little squares, and like you get a pack of 25 of them, little boats and stuff in them. They should make a book that has glossy, cool, show to your player pictures with the monster on the back. That would be a great publishing thing.
Well, they've essentially done that with the tarot cards and made it useful, because you've got the stats on the back as well.
Now, what are those called?
Is nice and organised on the back of it.
Do they have a name for those? They have some already, you're saying?
Yes, they're the I think they're either called combat cards or battle cards. They are out now. It took a while for them to be available over here,
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all a bit delayed for us.
Yeah.
In the UK. But yeah, you can like order them from Amazon or wherever your local game store and stuff now.
Cool.
They are currently available, and it was the next thing I was going to purchase for my in-person table before the whole situation everybody's now in happened.
Well, now you can start saving money for that grand reopening.
Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, definitely. When this all lifts, I'm running right down to my local gaming store and dropping about 100 bills. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. The shops here in San Antonio, Texas, one of them just really struggling. They had a beautiful store. They have like 2 private rooms that have like castle tables and chairs in them. It's called Night Watch Games. They have big, massive pub tables and hanging chandeliers, and of course there's 40K stuff in there. And they have board game nights. They do all this neat stuff. It's really clean, really classy. And then when the stuff hit, you know, they had to like suddenly try to throw up a Squarespace site to start selling things. So I think it's been a real eye opener for these game shops to like, listen, you can't sell your junk on eBay, dude. You're going to have something with pictures. Look at Miniature Market. You know, they're a well-oiled machine now, but hopefully the game shops can survive from this. They need to go to the pool table model where you just rent a room and the room's already ready to go. You know, just rent the booth and play all night long like in a pub. So, well, I'll tidy it up here. I'll talk all night long. Thanks again, you guys, for coming with these really cool, interesting characters. We'll stay in touch on Discord, and if folks have questions when this is on YouTube, just feel free to ask away, and I'm sure the fellows will be happy to explain something. And I'll put these character sheets somewhere where people can get them for free without having to pay nothing. We would never do that. All right?
Absolutely. Thanks a ton.
Yeah, and have a good evening and a great weekend.
Later, everyone.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Take care.